waited a few days to get this out. I think as a supporter base, we all needed a few days to process what we saw, to vent a little bit. I've been overwhelmed at the amount of messages I've had since Friday night's game. A lot of mostly negatives, I'll be honest, a lot of negative comments about the team, individuals, etc., etc. And I do share a lot of the sentiments with the people messaging me. I've had a few comments as well. A lot of slander, and it's just, I understand where it's all coming from, and it's so easy to fall into a negative mindset about where we're at, what we are as a club, etc., etc. The news headlines certainly don't help that, and a massive blowout in the last quarter that stretches the margin out to 40 odd points, which is the biggest loss we've had in over a year. It all it's like throwing wood on the fire essentially. It doesn't help, and it makes it a lot worse. So I don't know how much to talk about the game itself. It was obviously an interesting one. Again, the rain came down. It just shows that we're really not a wet weather side anymore. Our skills weren't quite there. They weren't up to it. Our decision making isn't great. We have individuals that sometimes don't look like they're cut out to be there, but then in other games they'll look like they're the best player on the ground, and it's the inconsistency that's really hurting us at the moment. I do want to point out, and I mentioned it in the last video, and people tend to forget that we have so many players. I think we've got about 7 or 8 players that have played less than 20 games. So let's put that into perspective before we start trying to grind everyone down. I think the inexperience, it hurts, but it's going to be good in the long run because these guys are going to get developed. They're going to be better for it in the long term. Obviously, right now, when you're sitting and looking at our record of 1 win, 1 loss, 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses, it's not ideal, no. But the development of these younger guys again is going to be great. I think Jack came in, he had a week off, came in, kicked 4, looked great. He had obviously the big cut in his head, which the photo's been doing the rounds, obviously, with all the blood all over his face and all that sort of stuff. But I think his 4-goal performance was fantastic, and we needed him to do that. Obviously the score didn't reflect so much in the end, but I think throughout the game it really kept us in touch. Who else? I think Taranto and Hopper both had pretty good games individually. I know a lot of people have been, shitting all over them, to put it bluntly, saying that they're a waste, we're throwing away our future. I really don't buy into any of that. Yes, they haven't set the world on fire, but I think they've been 2 of our better players throughout the season. Obviously Hopper missed a game, but they've been 2 of the better players throughout the year. And I don't think it's only their fault that we're not winning the midfield battle and the clearances, because there's going to be more to it than just those 2. And obviously they're a contributing factor, yes, but the lack of a proper ruckman didn't help on the weekend. And then there's obviously other players that are involved in that. I'm not quite sure what it is that we can't seem to win a centre clearance. Like round 1, we come up against one of the better midfields in the comp in Carlton, and we won. We won the clearances. We won the centre battle, and then you think, oh geez, these 2 picks have been fantastic. And then as the weeks go on, I think we won it in Adelaide as well. And then from then on, our 3 losses and all that, we just can't seem to get it right. And I don't think it's necessarily just the fault of those 2 boys. And like I said, I think they've had pretty good games. Taranto could be cleaner by foot, yes, but I think he wins a lot of the ball, which you need. Hopper does the same. They can find the scoreboard. We know that. It's just about doing it more on a consistent basis. So we'll get that. But I really don't think we've thrown away our future. Going back to that comment, you look at, like I said, we had 7 players that haven't played more than 20 games yet. So you look at them; they're our future. We've got our future. You got blokes like Josh Gibcus that aren't back ready to play yet. You know what I mean? Like, you've got these guys that are up and coming through. We've got the future. That's set. I think we're okay. We're not too bad. Yeah, depth we probably need to work on. But in terms of the future, I think we've got it. I think maybe a key forward stock we should work on a little bit, but I don't think we've thrown anything away with Taranto and Hopper. They're sort of filling in that role that, like, when a Cochin and a Prestia and these older guys sort of move on, these guys will take that spot. And I think they've come in at the perfect time. They're both young, 25, 26, 24, however old they are. They're young. They've still got plenty of football left. Dusty's another one, only a year or 2 max, you'd imagine. So I don't think these guys are the issue. I think obviously we'd love them to be lighting the world on fire and playing Brownlow form type football, but realistically that's not going to happen. It's a rarity that happens. So let's put that into perspective. But in terms of the Swans game, I'll touch a bit more on that. We were just outclassed. I mean, really, Tom Papley he kicked 6 goals in the last half, and I reckon 5 of them were uncontested out the back goals. And I'm not shitting on Papley for kicking uncontested goals. That's our fault. How do you let this man do this over and over again? Fair enough, he's going to kick one or two like that. It happens. That's football. But to do it 6 times and no one's there keeping him accountable, I think it's not quite on. And I think that comes down to some of our leaders as well. And again, like Grimes, I love him. I think he's as good as our captain. But I just think some of these younger guys in our back line, and he needs to be there to keep them more accountable and, directing traffic a bit more, which is where I think, missing guys like Broad and Short in the back line with those really experienced heads, it tends to hurt. And like I said, the errors that we're making have nothing to do with the injuries. However, in saying that, you bring the injured guys in and some of the mistakes being made probably don't happen. But, you can only win with who you've got on the park. And I really don't want to be one of those people that uses injuries as an excuse. They're not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. But I really don't think that they're the sole reason that we're losing games, because we have these quarters, and I mentioned it on my Instagram story during the week, on the weekend, but we have these quarters where we come out and we blaze away and we look unreal. We had it against the Dogs. We had it again against the Swannies. I guess we had probably 2 or 3 quarters against Adelaide even then. In Collingwood, we had one where we look really good and we're like, we're back. Okay, we're going to win this game now. We'll roll over the top. And then we go the other way. Instead of rolling over the top, we just flop the other way and they roll over us. And it's hard to watch. It's disappointing. I know Richmond supporters are filthy at the moment, and I guess rightfully so. Like, we're not where we expect to be. We did have a tough run. Like, you look at the teams that we played. I mean, at the beginning of the year, you wouldn't have thought Adelaide would be a tough run, but they clearly are. So it was good for us to get the win over them. But, Carlton are no side to shy away at. Collingwood, we know where they're at. Adelaide, I already mentioned. The Doggies, I mean, they're up and down. We don't quite know where they're going to be, but again, that was a disappointing loss. You got the Swans last year's premiership, not premiership winners, but they were in the grand final last year, the Swans. So, and we've got Melbourne, Anzac Day Eve coming up. So we've had a tough run, and it's going to get easier from here, you'd imagine. But Bulldogs and Swans in particular were 2 games we really should have pinched. We really should have won both of those. We had the opportunity to. We probably needed to. Actually, no, we definitely needed to, just to keep us in touch. And, you win 2 of those, and we're 3 wins, 1 draw, and a loss or 2 losses, whatever it is. And no one's saying boo about Richmond. All of a sudden, there's no issue there. So the fact that we're this close from winning a couple of these games. I mean, the Sydney one, I say we should have won. We're only just behind at 3/4 time. We arguably should have been in front. And there's by no stretch of the imagination do I think it's acceptable that we let them kick the way they did in that last quarter and kick away from it. So that's just not on, especially if we do want to contend and play finals football. I'm not saying, the way we're going, you'd say a flag's out of the question, but at least playing finals is something you want to aim to do. And I think the way we're going about it, it's not going to happen. So a lot to work on. Like I said, we've got Melbourne, the one of the premiership favourites. We've got them at Anzac Day, a big occasion. They've had the wood over us the last season or 2, but then they just lost to Essendon on the weekend. But then Essendon's second on the ladder. So it's the competition is crazy. It's wide open. Honestly, people writing us off, I understand where it's coming from, but there's still so much football left to be played that anything can happen. So it wouldn't completely surprise me if we, win a few games in a row and all of a sudden we're sort of back in the mix. So I'm sort of leaning on that at the moment because I'm trying not to be too negative, because I feel like that's the easy option. Just all of a sudden shut us down. We need a new coach. I've heard some people saying, I don't know, just things need to be changed. Yeah, something needs to be different, I guess. Like, we can't keep going the way we're going, but is it dimmer? Who knows? Honestly, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I don't really know what else to say. It's been a couple of days now, so no point getting into the nitty gritty of the stats and this and that. We all know. It's, like I said, I've left it a few days on purpose, but also because it's been that long, we're all pretty aware of what took place, and we all know what needs to be improved. It's a lot of the time. This discipline is the other one I didn't mention. Discipline constantly kills us, and it has for the last few seasons. But by my word, I don't understand how that is not drilled into the playing group by now. But I know Dimmer loves to play on the edge, and I love that as a fan. I love watching us come out, knowing we're going to toe the line a little bit. But it's the silly things that we're giving 50s and free kicks away for. It's not even the tough stuff, that you'll cop. It's all the silly things like talking back, not giving the football back properly. It's all, knocks off the ball. Things you don't need to be doing. And we're kicking ourselves out of games. And I've said it all year. I think every game we've lost, even the draw, it's Richmond beating Richmond. The score didn't reflect it against the Swans, I know, but we haven't comprehensively been beaten, I don't think, any week. We've really kicked ourselves out of it when we've had chances to be in front and win these games. So it's super frustrating because obviously when you know the potential is there and the talent is there as well, like people look at our injuries, right? You look at the injury list and it's pretty big and it's pretty doom and gloom. I know that. But then you look at the list that we've still got on the park, and I mean, yeah, some of these guys are older, I know, but you still look, you got, Jack Rewalt, Dustin Martin, Shea Bolton, Trent Cotchin, Tim Taranto, Jacob Hopper. You got Dylan Grimes. Noah Bolter, when he decides to, can look like Alex Rance out there at times. But then, I know other times it can go the other way. But I still consider Bolter to be a good player. Marlon Pickett is coming off a career best form last year. Noah Cumberland is lighting the world on fire. Speaking of guys that need to light the world on fire, he's doing it already, Noah Cumberland. He comes in and he makes such a big difference. And yeah, he makes a few blunders. But remember, the guy's played less than 20 AFL games. He's going to do that, but he just creates so much when he's near the ball, he's around the footy, and he finds the goals. And he did it again on the weekend against the Swans. He did make a couple of mistakes, but so did most of our team. So I don't hold anything against him for that. But we do have these other stars on the park, and then just imagine when we get the rest of the playing list back, or when most of them start to come back, we're going to be that much better for it. Hopefully Jaden Short is back against the D's. We probably really need him. But yeah, it's going to be a long season if we're all doom, gloom, and pretty negative about it. And like I just said, I know it's easy to get like that, but let's try to be a little bit more optimistic and put things a bit more into perspective. We do have a young list playing at the moment in the best 18 or the best 22. That's so many young guys with inexperience. So it's going to be a battle. But I guess, as Richmond supporters, we really don't know it any other way. 2018 was the only year we really had a cruisy run, and look how that worked out for us. So I think every year that we've struggled or we've had a bit of diversity, I think it always tends to suit us a little bit. So if we keep going like this, it's going to become too late. But I think we're still a chance to start playing some good football and turn our season around. It's early enough in the year to do that. So fingers crossed we can. But that's pretty much my review of the Sydney game. I know I didn't talk much about the game in particular. It was more about my feelings about the Tigers and where we're headed, etc. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I know I've spoken to a lot of you on Instagram and stuff as well. If you want, jump across, go follow that. We have Pressure Point merch. The winter stuff is out. There is going to be a little Tiger Den surprise on the merchandise store, so keep an eye out for that in the next few days. I will be sharing it on all the socials, but in the meantime, go buy a Pressure Point hoodie, crew neck, cap, tee, whatever it is. Go jump across, support the channel, buy some stuff there. It's greatly appreciated. But that's pretty much all I've got for this one. It's the Swans review. It's a game I'm looking forward to putting behind me, and I'm looking forward to Anzac Day Eve. It's a massive occasion. I think every year Richmond Melbourne have played Anzac Day Eve. I've been there. So let me know if you guys are going to be going. I'd love to get my hands on one of the Anzac Day Eve jerseys. I missed out last year. At the time of recording this, they might already be gone. I'm not actually sure. I should have kept a closer eye on it, but I'd love to get my hands on one of those if I can too, because I think they're magnificent jerseys, and the cause they go towards is incredible. As we all know. So look forward to that. But until then, try to find the positive side of our team. I know it's hard, but it is there.